Man, this semester was intense. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lily, and if you're not new here, well, welcome back to the channel. For today, I wanted to talk about my first semester after nursing school, how it went, but most importantly, giving some studying tips and recommendations based on what worked for me. I hope it's going to be helpful, especially for someone who has been working for a while and going back to school. I know that it takes a little bit of time to kind of reacclimate to that environment, myself included. And I thought that, you know what, let's make a video about some good studying strategies, and what I think would not work, what I think has worked very well. But again, you know, all of this is sort of subjective. You know yourself best. I've done what works best for me, but I think that hopefully some of these ideas could probably help someone out there. So yeah, if this sounds like something you are interested in, let's get right into the video. So for those of you who are aware or who aren't aware, I'm just gonna do a really quick recap. I just finished my first semester at Penn, and I'm in their current accelerated nursing program. It's the Masters of Professional Nursing. It is a 15-month program. It started in August of 2025 and will end in December this year, 2026. So exactly 1 year left, and you know the 4 months has gone by really quick. According to some of my friends, they felt like I've been in school forever, but it's only been 4 months, and it's really been a pretty adventurous ride. A lot of studying, a lot of work, but it's work that, you know, I'm sure you're all going to be proud of if you go to nursing school and you try your best and you come out on the other side with a lot of like skills, a lot of knowledge, and it's something certainly to feel like very happy about, very proud of. So I'm, you know, sharing all of this information not to brag or to anything, but just really to provide some hopefully good insight, good input, good feedback, good tips to folks who are going into nursing school or who are currently in nursing school. Of course, this is a 15-month program, like I said, so I have not even finished half of my program. But I think after this first semester, I have a pretty good gauge on what has worked well for me. And honestly, if you are considering going to UPenn for their nursing, especially for this master's program, accelerated master's program, this probably would be some good insight for you. So I had taken 5 classes the last semester. Starting in August 2025 all the way through December 2025. I had 5 courses. I had 1 clinical rotation. 3 of the courses were more revolving around sort of like health equity and along those lines. And 2 of them was a little bit more, I guess I would say, science-based. I took my physiology and pharmacology course, and I also took my psychiatric mental health course. I had 1 clinical rotation. It was in psychiatric mental health. And so 5 courses past semester. They did a really great job kind of staggering the courses a little bit, so we weren't taking all 5 at the same time. There was overlap. But I think that certainly one of the hardest courses that everyone has emphasized, especially the last cohort, is the pathophysio and pharmacology course, which, yeah, it was a lot of material. Essentially, I was studying every single day throughout the entire semester. Maybe not the weekends every single day. I mean, I certainly took breaks, but all of my peers, they definitely studied a lot. And it really is important, I feel, to study a little bit every day, because that's how you are able to keep on top of things and you don't fall behind. So let me just look here at my notes, and I will kind of share the things that worked really well and what did not work well for me. So I know, again, everyone's different, right? So for me particularly, I work well, or I study well, when there is movement, when I'm walking around. If I sit still for too long, it doesn't work for me. Now, when I spoke with many of my other peers, they mentioned, oh, they sit they study best when they're just sitting there in a very quiet environment. Like even if there's like a little clicky sound or if there's like droplets of water, they can't study. So everyone's different, right? For me specifically though, what I did was I try to like kill two birds with one stone, where I would go to the gym, I would have all my notes, whether it was on the iPad or if it was written out, and I would put that on the treadmill and I would walk at an incline, and I would walk for around 30 to 60 minutes depending on the day and how I was feeling. And then I would basically try to walk to the point where I finished one lecture. And specifically I studied most for patho, physio, and pharmacology. It was actually one course combining both of those concepts together. And so what I would do is I would set a quantitative goal. I think that a lot of times when we study, we say, hey, we'll study. At least I did that. I was guilty of that too. But it may work for some folks. But, when we say, I'm going to study 4 hours today, and you set a time duration, which is great. Honestly, it's better than nothing. But I think what works better is if you set an actual goal, like, hey, today I'm going to review all my diabetes slides, and tomorrow I'm going to review my heart failure slides. It's different, of course, with each program. For my program, for this particular course, our teacher, each lecture was about 3 hours, and each lecture PowerPoint deck was about 100 to 160 slides, and every slide was filled with information, besides her cute little memes, but every slide had information. It was very densely packed. And so for me to say today, I'm just going to focus on one lecture that's about over 100 slides I have to review, each one densely populated with words. So that was a lot. And a lot of times, even when I watched 1 hour on the treadmill incline, I only got through half of that lecture, which is 50 slides. Because, the thing is, it's important to understand, right? So for me, I would basically go through every single slide and read it. And I would walk and get my exercise in, but also go through the slides and try to understand, try to absorb it, not just read it. But that worked well for me. And for each exam, I would review slides at least 3-4 times, the entire deck. Now, some of you are probably thinking, hey, that doesn't seem very time efficient. I'd rather write notes. Definitely do notes. Do whatever works for you. But for me, going through the slides, walking on the treadmill, it worked really well. So that was my first thing. Second thing I would suggest is, like I mentioned earlier, it's really important to understand the concepts. I cannot stress that enough. Memorizing will only do so much, and of course, you need to memorize. For me, I memorized all the drugs, I memorized all the adverse side effects, I memorized all the mechanism of actions, I memorized all the drug interactions. Those are just pure memorization. But in terms of concepts, in terms of how things work, you can kind of link it together, right? Concepts you need to understand in order for you to really grasp the material, because I'm sure that for most programs, if not all programs, professors try to structure their exams in a way that is similar to NCLEX exams. And they do that obviously to prepare you. So a lot of the questions are going to be application-wise, right? It's not, hey, what is this? What does this do? I mean, maybe there are questions like that, but most of it is going to be application-wise, where you need to understand the concept first, and they ask a question, and how does that concept apply in that situation or that scenario? So I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand the concepts. So make sure you do that. For me, how I understood it was by basically going through every single lecture. Sometimes I would write out, like if it was if I needed to, because for me, I see things visually. Sometimes it works out better. Just reading the lecture slides sometimes isn't enough for me. So I would actually physically draw out maps or diagrams and see how all of them connect together. And once you understand the whole picture, it's a lot easier to digest, because you see the whole picture, and then you kind of, absorb what happens from here, from point A to point B, or from point A to point C. It kind of all comes together. So having that holistic big picture to start out with really helps a lot. So if you break it down like that from your lectures, it will help a lot. Additionally, I've spoken with some of my peers, and they mentioned how, like I said, everyone studies differently, right? I wanted to share this, though I didn't really use it as much, is the fact that some people study better with audio. So what do I mean by that, right? Listening. Some people don't study very well when they're looking at slides, or they're looking at diagrams. It's a really good tip. If you have heard of it, Notebook LLM, go and take a look at it. I'm not sure if they still have a student discount. They might, but when I signed up, they gave 1 year student discount, so you could access Notebook LLM for free for a whole year. One of my peers, he recommended this because he studies better by listening to audio. What you can do is, of course, you don't want to be uploading your lecture slides, like your teacher's slides, directly into Notebook LLM, right? At least I don't do that because we're not allowed to at Penn. What I would do is I would use note cards, like my own notes, or notes that have been shared by my peers that we have written out ourselves, and not the actual original slides or notes, whatever that your teacher has posted. Upload your own notes into Notebook LLM, and you could basically create a podcast, which is super cool. There's a lot of other functions, like they do mind maps, brain dumps, debates, everything. The podcasts are really interesting. With the podcast, you upload all your information. It takes like maybe 10 minutes for it to generate, and they can generate like a short, medium, longer duration podcast. Mine has always been about 20 minutes. And you could generate in multiple different languages. If English isn't your first language, if it's a little difficult for you to learn in English, you could generate in other languages as well. And when you generate it, it's like a 20-minute podcast between two different folks, and they're basically talking about all the topics of the information that you've uploaded, right? Like if you upload all your notes, they're going to kind of condense all that and kind of have a really interesting conversation about the topic. And it's a nice way to kind of listen if you're doing dishes, just to keep like listening and understanding the information that was taught in class. It's a good way. I will say there is a caveat. Sometimes it's definitely not 100% accurate. So it's important that while it is a really helpful resource, always make sure you do your due diligence. Check to make sure the information is accurate that's being like generated by AI, because it does hallucinate sometimes, right? So, or maybe more than sometimes. Just make sure whatever you're listening to, whatever you're reading, whatever notes you're using, just make sure you do a really quick double check to ensure that the information is accurate. But for the most part, I would say like 95% above, it's pretty good. So that's also another way to study. I used to use Anki note cards. I know it's very popular. I used to use that when I was doing my prerequisites at the community college. It worked very well. I tried doing Anki note cards with this program, but I ended up completely stopping it because it was just taking too much of my time. I would end up the best for me was just going through all of the lecture slides. I know it sounds tedious and a lot and overwhelming, but that worked really well for me. Because I would review it every day. It's not like I would cram at the end of right before the exam. Every single day, for the most part, I would say like at least 4 days a week, I would be reviewing and studying. And if I didn't study the next day, I would make sure I did extra on the day before. And that's how it worked for me. Okay, so Anki note cards is good. Quizlets is also a really good option. I know there's a free version of both of them, but if you pay for it, which I don't think is too much, you get a lot more features, which might be a lot more helpful for you. Like you can download it into like a PDF, and then that's how I did and uploaded into Notebook LLM to generate that sort of podcast that you can listen to. Personally, I do feel that in nursing school, everyone's trying to reach the same goal, help each other out. So important, really important to find a good group of folks to study with. You don't want too large a group, right? You don't want too small a group. You want maybe 4 or 5 folks, maybe 6, 7 at most, just because, if it gets too large, you get a little distracted. If it's too small, you don't have, maybe there's like not enough ideas. Not saying there's not enough ideas, but there's, less ideas and ways to bounce things around. But for me, it's interesting. I met like everyone in the program, super nice. I've made some good friends, and we have like, there's a specific group of girls that I do like, text and ask questions, and we like, work together. But we actually never study together. We've always just kind of met up at school, asked questions or text, and all that stuff, but never really studied together. A lot of people say that you should find a good study group. I agree. Again, everyone studies differently, but for me, I find that I study best by myself, because for me to understand a concept, I need to understand it as a high level, and then I explain it. But I explain it really to no one but to myself. And when you can explain it, that means you understand it. You're not just regurgitating material that you've memorized, right? I know this is going to sound really weird, but what worked really well for me also is that I would review all the material. I would draw all the diagrams if needed, or I would look at my lecture notes, and I would then review that many times, and then I would go and start talking to the thin air. I know it sounds crazy, but it works really well. I just talk like I'm teaching someone about this concept. I just talk to my pillow. I print out a smiley face smacking on the pillow, and I'm talking to someone. And then I basically just talk out loud. I explain, hey, this is this process, what happens, why does it happen, and what are the intermediates in between, and I explain it. I just explain it, and then I understand it. So for me, talking out loud is really helpful, which is why I don't really work well in study groups, because then I would just be distracting everyone by talking out loud. But I think it could also work if you want to explain it to folks. But for us, we all live in very different areas, because we're all graduates, right? It's not like we're in undergrad and living in the dorms and it's easy. Everyone would have to take the train to go to campus and everything. So for me, what worked well was just to, talk out loud and just explain the concepts. And if you have someone, if you live with family members or with friends, if they're interested, you could always explain it to them. I live in the studio by myself, so I explain it to my pillow. Works, right? Whatever works for you. Okay, so I also think that it's really important to obviously reward yourself, take a break. Nursing school is going to be it's challenging in that there's a lot of material, but once you get past, that initial, oh my God, kind of like, what am I going to do? That overwhelming feeling. Once you start breaking things down, you start organizing it, you start planning ahead, it's actually not too bad. I think it's doable. It's very doable if you put the time into it, if you figure out the best way for you to study, and you study every even if you study 15, 20 minutes a day, that's still really good. At least you're reviewing the concepts, you're not forgetting it. And then it keeps building, right? So never ever cram. I know everyone says this, but honestly, this is not like undergrad where you can sometimes cram. I was guilty of cramming. I was actually a really bad student in undergrad, believe it or not. I studied biochemistry and molecular bio in my undergrad, how many years is it now? Almost 20 years ago. It's a long time. And maybe it could just have been I was not mature. I didn't have this current mental status, or the way of thinking right now that I do much later in life. But I was a terrible student. I didn't do well in undergrad. I had, flunked a course or two, had to repeat it, had to repeat physical chemistry, had to repeat OChem. I was not a great student. But I think what's changed now is maybe just that. If you really want something, I think I wasn't as motivated in undergrad, and I had family things going on, but it was a different mindset back then versus now. Now it's you're paying so much money to go to school. Don't fuck it up. Pardon my language, but don't fuck it up. Don't just go to school to memorize, go to school to understand, so that when you graduate, you feel proud of yourself, you're competent, you understand the material, you have the skill set, you have the knowledge, you're going to be an amazing nurse, right? You want to go to school with that mindset to really learn and get as much as you can when you have the ability to, because you're not going to have that environment once you graduate. And this is where you're like you can be a sponge and soak up everything. So I think that's my mindset now. So I try to take as much away as I can versus like undergrad when I was young and, just not really, studious and just going through motions. But now it's a little different, right? But yeah, everyone has their own story, right? We all kind of mature, we grow in different ways, in different rates, and we all move through life, and our experiences eventually shape who we are. So, when I was starting out this program and studying we have 4 exams in PathoPharm, and I'm talking mostly PathoPharm because it is the most difficult course. The other courses, the exams weren't as difficult, nowhere as near as difficult, at least to me personally. And so for PathoPharm, I studied differently for the first 2 exams versus the last 2. The last 2, I ended up walking so much on the treadmill that my toe got like a little sprained because I was on an incline, like 45-degree or 30-degree incline for like half an hour to an hour, and my toe started hurting and I couldn't walk. And so I had to change my way of studying. And so then I would pace around my studio or sit at my desk and study and then pace and sit and pace and sit, and that would work too. So there's no perfect way to studying. You kind of adapt as you try out different things, experiment to see what works well for you. Did it work the first time? If it worked, continue. If it didn't work, try something new, right? Life is all about trying something new, figuring out what works well and what doesn't work well for you. So that was good. So yeah, make sure you take a break. Sorry, my dishwasher's beeping. Hope you don't hear that in the background, but make sure you take a break. Like, you can only study so much before you get so tired, right? You deserve to take a break, watch a show, go for a walk, go to the spa, go to the gym, read a book, go get a massage. I actually, because of clinicals, we have 12-hour clinicals, right? So I would get really tired standing on my feet, and, I got 2 foot massages throughout the 4 months I was there, and that felt amazing. Like, reward yourself. When you hit a goal, reward yourself with something within realistic means, of course, right? Like, just so you make sure you're still being financially responsible, but you reward yourself. It does feel good, right? So I think that's important. Also, I'm sure that for any program, before you have an exam, professors normally give like a practice exam. It's so important to take that practice exam because it really gives a good gauge in terms of where you're lacking or where you need to study a little bit more and where you're really strong at. So for me, I tend to like to take the practice exam once I feel like I'm 60 or 70% confident, like in the material, because there's simply not enough time, right? So if you want to wait until 100%, you're really not going to get there maybe some folks can, but I couldn't. So I would take the practice exam at least 2 to 3 days before my actual exam, and even that's cutting it short. Some folks like to take it once it's released, like a week before. But at that point, I'm not even 60, 70% ready. I feel like I'm at 40% ready. And I really want to take the practice exam without my notes. So when you're taking practice exam, make sure you have some sort of like confidence in like what you understand, like 60 to 70%. Take the practice exam, see how you're doing, take it without your notes, because then that's a true gauge of what you truly understand and what you still need to brush up on. And then once you can then review the things that you need to brush up on. If you have some extra time, it'd be great to retake that practice exam. I know that you probably already know the answers, but it's still good because, at least for our practice exams, we have like 100 questions. So I'm not going to remember the answer to all the questions. So I would retake the practice exam after I studied a little bit more, and then I would say, hey, I did better, right? So I would say that definitely I've never studied this much in my entire life. I studied a lot, and I do not regret any of it because, like I said earlier, you're paying for this degree in this economy. Everything's so expensive, and if you're going to be paying that much, you better make sure that you take as much away from that program to make you an amazing nurse, right? So put your all into it. If you're going to do this, go through it all the way. You know, it is going to be hard, not going to lie, but it's not impossible. Because if I can do it, I really think anyone can do it. All you really need is you need passion, you need grit, and you need to have a good plan. You stay organized ahead of due dates, ahead of exams, so you make sure you know when the next exam is coming, when the next homework assignment is coming. Make sure that you're organized. That's really, really important. Keep a calendar. I always use my Google Calendar. I've realized that I've gotten so many like notebook calendars. I never use it. I do it for the first couple times and then I stop using it. It doesn't work for me. So for me, it's all Google Calendars. But whatever it works for you, get a calendar, whether it's virtual, whether it's hard paper. Make sure you write everything down so you know when everything is due. Very important. And yeah, I mentioned already, don't cram. You're not really going to learn it. You're not really going to understand it if you cram, and you're not going to do well on your exams if you're cramming. It's just, there's no way with all the material, right? Like for accelerated programs, it's even more so. I don't know how like regular 2-year or 4-year bachelor's of nursing programs are. I would assume it's, less material within a shorter amount of time. So yeah, definitely for accelerated programs, you don't want to cram. You want to start studying the day you start lecture. You study every single day and you will thank yourself for it because, hey, think about it. It's only going to be for this amount of time. I know there's 12-month accelerated programs. There's 15 months, right? There's 18 months maybe, or is it 2 years? I don't remember, but it's just that much. You just need to dedicate that amount of time and then you're going to be done and then you're going to go out and you're going to have all this information and you're going to feel great about it, right? And it's just good to know. It's good to understand because then you feel like you truly can feel confident in your skill set. And that's what I keep emphasizing here. I think that at the end of the day, like I mentioned, you don't need a perfect routine. Experiment what works for you. Don't feel like you have to have it down 100% accurate the first time around. No one can, right? Just reiterate. Everything's about iterations. Do what works. Take what works, throw away what doesn't work, and iterate on it. And then you will find a good way that works for you. And also importantly, find a good place, a good environment to study. For me, it's my studio. It's the gym when I walk on the treadmill when I could. It's the common study areas when no one's there. I can't study with other people. I just get distracted. Make sure you find a good study environment. If you know you're going to fall asleep in bed, don't study in bed. I can't do it in bed, so I don't study in bed. Even though it's super cold and the bed feels very cozy, I can't do it. So know where you will not do well studying, know where you will, and just force yourself to do it. And just do you don't even have to do 5 hours of studying a day. You could do 1 hour. As long as you do it each day, you pace yourself, you don't do it last minute, you're going to do a lot better. So given the fact that I studied so much for PathoPharm every single day, I did get all A's in my class, flat A's, which I'm really proud of. But for PathoPharm, one of the exams, even though I studied so much, I actually got an 83% on my second exam, which was just average. And I felt so bad about it. And that's with studying a lot. So, it's just, although I will say that for that time, I actually had to fly back to California because I had some family matters. But it's still even though I did so much, I still ended up only with a 93 point something percent, which is technically an A. But, imagine if I didn't, right? I still never got a 100%. It was hard. But what I'm trying to say again is that if you develop your own routine or study habits, make sure you know yourself best, you know what works well for you. I can only say so much. Hopefully some of the things that I've shared will be something you could experiment with and try to see if it works for you. But yeah, that's really all I have in terms of studying. I wanted to really quickly share a bag of the week and on a fun note here. I haven't done this for a very long time. As you can see, I'm not in my studio. It's the new year. It's actually January 5th today. So happy New Year 2026. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Starting off the new year with a great bang. But I wanted to do a bag review, not bag review, sorry, like weekly bag, what bag I'm using. Just because, again, you know, we are a bag channel here. But this is like the classic, the ultimate classic. This is the Lululemon belt bag. It is the standard size one, and I didn't bring this with me to school, so this is at home, and I pull it out to use. And this is a great bag. I actually don't know how much they're selling these for now, but they shouldn't be more than $40. A lot of times Lululemon has sales, but it's just so compact, it's so lightweight, and it's so durable, right? So there's so many different colorways you can choose from right now in this bag. I just have my lotion, I have my chapstick, and then I have, let me just show you what lotions, the Dionysus, I always say this incorrectly, it's the one from Costco. Then I use this chapstick, which is the Black Cherry, it has SPF 25, so I like that for my lips. And then I have in here just the car key fob. And then I have hand sanitizer. This is the Noshinku. I've talked about this many times. I like how it's super flat, so it works very well in this little, you know, the mesh pouch here. There's two mesh pouches here. On the other side, I have my, just make sure nothing's showing. Okay, I have my little compact wallet. This is from Gen Create. This was gifted to me by them a while ago, but this is genuine leather, and it's like this really pretty emerald green color. It's working very well. I just have my student card, driver's license, medical cards, and credit cards here. It does have like an interior slot here where you could put cash or receipts. I just put like receipts in there. It works very well. And then this is the middle compartment. I don't have my camera with me, so I'm actually filming with my phone right now, but otherwise I do have an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It is the largest phone. I don't know if the newest iPhones are the same size as the older models, but it fits in here perfectly. And I just close it up. And in the back there is the zip pocket. In here I just have a little comb. I get these off Amazon, and I love them because they're like super tiny, they're flat, and yeah, they do a good job in combing my hair, and it's wood, so I like this a lot. So yeah, this is all I have in my Lululemon bag of the week that I've been using so far since I've been back home for the holidays. Yeah, it works really well. Love it. You can adjust it. I wear it like as a crossbody, so it looks like this. But you can obviously wear it as a belt bag around your waist, but I don't normally wear it like that. Yeah, so that is it. Silver hardware. I think that's it for this video. So thank you all so much for joining. I hope it was helpful. I wish you all, you know, a wonderful 2026 ahead. Wishing you lots of good moments, good health, prosperity, success, happiness, joy with all of your friends, your family, and especially take care of yourself. It's important to take care of yourself so that you can continue doing wonderful things in this world. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.